I created a travel software that boosted our Bankrupt company to $400 million in profit in a year. But suddenly, on my sister's birthday, my dad gifted her the entire business. When I confronted him, he laughed at me and handed me $100, saying, "This is your actual value." I quietly left, but the next morning, when they arrived at work. For too long, we've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change, Lauren went on, her eyes locking onto mine. That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for certain elements that no longer serve our growth to step aside. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I sat there, frozen, as Lauren carried out her corporate execution in front of our entire network. Some people, she added, her voice dripping with false sympathy, are better suited for technical roles rather than leadership. She was talking about me, humiliating me. My sister Ava has done an adequate job maintaining our legacy systems, but in today's fast-moving industry, we need vision. We need excellence. And frankly, Ava, you're just not cut out for this level of business. I turned to Dad. Say something. Stand up for me. But he just nodded along, a proud smile on his face. Mom, on the other hand, kept her eyes down, her hands trembling slightly on the table. Lauren wasn't done. The truth is, she said, her voice rising for dramatic effect. Ava, you are worthless in today's business world. Your outdated ideas and lack of formal business education have become the liability. It's time for you to step aside gracefully. The silence in the room was suffocating. Hundreds of eyes were on me, waiting for my response. I could feel the pity, the judgment, the unspoken agreement with Lauren's words. Everything I had built, every late night, every sacrifice, it was all being away in front of everyone. Slowly I stood. My chair scraped against the floor, the sound slicing through the hush like a gunshot. Everyone expected a scene. Maybe tears, a screaming match. Instead, I simply picked up my purse, walked over to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped package in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked out. Head held high, leaving behind the whispers, the stares, and the sister who thought she had won. That night, I sat in my home office, surrounded by awards and patents that bore my name. Lauren believed she had taken everything from me, but she had forgotten one crucial detail, something that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I powered up my laptop and began typing, a small smile played on my lips. Tomorrow would be interesting. After all, there's more than one way to run a successful business. And in 10 years, I had learned far more than Lauren had in all her fancy business classes. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear, and with it, everything was about to change. I arrived at the office early, before anyone else, and waited. At precisely 9 a.m., Lauren strode through the front doors with Dad beside her, both wearing triumphant smiles, smiles that were about to be wiped off their faces. Ava, Lauren's voice held a mix of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, remembering the email I had sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Mitchell Tech. "Just wrapping up some loose ends, sister dear. But since you're here, we should probably talk about the company's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad interjected, his voice firm. "Lauren's in charge now. The board has already approved it." "Ah yes, the board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that." I tapped the screen, and the conference room's main monitor lit up with a document. You see, while Lauren was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I was actually building this company, and there are a few things you both seem to have forgotten. I pulled up another document, zooming in for emphasis. First, let me remind you that I own 51% of Mitchell Tech shares. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Lauren and me equal shares, 25% each, while keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me 6% of his shares. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Lauren's award ceremony to handle the negotiations yourself, so you signed the papers without reading them carefully. The color drained from both their faces. Lauren's perfectly manicured hands gripped the conference table. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Dad would never." "But he did," I interrupted, pulling up another document. "And that's not all." I clicked again, and another screen filled with legal filings. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue? It's not owned by Mitchell Tech. It's owned by my separate company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Mitchell Tech only has a licensing agreement, which expires in, I checked my watch about 10 minutes ago. Dad collapsed into a chair, realization dawning on his face. "The renewal papers," he murmured. "The ones you asked me to sign last week, the ones I didn't read because you were too busy helping Lauren plan the party." I finished for him. "Yes, those papers. I decided not to submit them. Lauren's face twisted in rage. You underhanded little, careful sister. I cut her off smoothly. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. I clicked again and a flood of emails appeared on the screen. While you were busy announcing my graceful exit last night, I was sending emails to our clients. You see, most of our major clients have personal loyalty clauses in their contracts. They signed with Mitchell Tech because of me, my expertise, my track record.